Hi friend, David here from Learn Stage Lighting, and I'm really excited because in this video, I want to show you how to run lighting on the fly for an event at your church, for a special event. This is focused towards church lighting, though it does apply elsewhere. Some kind of special event like a night of worship. Maybe you guys have a community day where there's a band playing music. Might be secular music, might be Christian, whatever. But I just wanted to bring into this context a video to show you how to run lights on the fly and really help you get over the intimidation of doing it. Because if you look at a console like I've got on my screen, just 10 basic faders, and then also a number of buttons on screen that I'm going to get to in a minute. You might say, whoa, David, that looks really complicated. But the fact is, these principles that I'm going to share with you are going to work in pretty much any lighting software that can do faders and buttons. Okay, so if you're in something much simpler, or a different console than Onyx, which I'm showing you, don't worry, this will apply to you. But what I want to show you here is how to set things up to run it on the fly, because ultimately, I've been in this situation before, and I know I was when I first started with church lighting, which is that you're going to have a special event of some sort. You could spend hours on end crafting the perfect lighting looks and pre-queuing out the various parts of your service, cue by cue. And you know what? That would take a lot of time. Or you could bring a lighting design that's just as impressive and just as moving for your church service, and have it pre-built so that you can pull this particular file out, pull it into your lighting console, load it for special events, and be able to run things on the fly and get some really good looks fast. And so I just want to show you what I've built here. We'll actually start by turning the lights off on these faders so that you can really understand what's going on and how to first, be able to make a great special event for your church. I know when I learned this, it was a really big deal because it enabled me to create really great lighting for my church. And this was the first church that I ever worked in. They had a sizable rig. And once I learned how to lay out a console like this, I could then load that file for any special event and follow these simple steps to create really great lighting. And so if this sounds exciting to you, make sure you're subscribed here, and let's go on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got an Onyx system with an NX Touch here in front of me. So that gives me 10 faders to work with, okay? Or you could use them on screen. You could have a MIDI controller in some consoles, whatever you've got. 10 faders is pretty standardized. So what I've done here is I've just made a fader for my front wash, okay? That controls that. I've made a fader for my front color, which I'll use anytime the band's on stage. When there's a preacher, I'll turn that off. I've made a fader for my wash movers. Okay, I've got 4 of those. My spot movers, so I bring those up to full. My beam movers. I know I do have a lot here. You may not have this much stuff, and that's totally cool. I started with much less. My bars, which are a little hard to see, but they're on the outside of the walls in the congregation. And then some effects. So I've got a cool red effect across all of the color mixing units, the washes. And then I've got a green effect, and I can combine the two together. I also have, which you can't see, but I have these rate faders, which are always up on my NX Touch so that I can make cues fade in faster on my buttons. I can make effects happen faster. Like here, I've got a nice tilt ballyhoo, some movement in the house there. Let's say I bring that up like this, and then I want it to go either faster, or maybe I want it to go nice and slow. I can do that very easily with my global effects speed. And then also, I've got a stage ballyhoo. Again, same thing. Can speed it up and slow it down. Any of the effects with this speed here. And so that's the layout of my faders. And that allows you basically, you might be looking at this saying, okay, David, this is not that exciting. And the truth is it's not, right? Because these faders, they give you intensity controls over the different pieces of your rig. Great. That's important. But they don't do much else than that, right? They really, they don't give you color. They don't give you movement other than these couple effects. So, David, what are you doing here? Well, let's go over to the playback buttons. So the playback buttons is really where the magic happens. If your console is like most lighting consoles these days, especially ones that have a strong PC program with them that you might be running things on, you're going to have access to a limited number of faders. Like here, I've got 10. You may have more or less. But buttons, either physical or on screen, in many of these pieces of software are almost unlimited. And the great thing is, I learned this early on in lighting, that a lot of things that you are going to fire, a lot of cues, a lot of looks that you put on your stage, you don't need to put on a fader, right? Like here, I've got a number of cues that have lighting positions for my moving heads on them, okay? Each one of these actually happens to have 2 cues on them. So here the lights are in one position, and then my 2 sets of lights actually switch positions. A little easier to see with this one because they go up to the sky, and then they come back down, and vice versa. And so that's what this first row of buttons is. Next, I've got colors. So this is all the lights in the rig at particular colors. And then below that, I've got color combinations. And the combinations are just like these position cues, so that they have 2 cues on them where the different groups of lights switch. Again, these have a slower fade time on them, but the beauty is I can grab this fader on my NX Touch. If I want them to go very fast, I just set them there. Now they'll fade instantly. If I want them to go much slower, boom, color's not a good example because of the spots, but they'll fade in more slowly. Okay, so we'll bring those guys back in. Then we've got some more color combinations, lots of those because, in lighting we change colors a lot. Then some half white looks. So if I want to turn the rig half white, I totally can, and that switches position. And then we can pop in some gobos on our spot movers as well. Very important. And often I'll program more things like gobo rotates, prisms, stuff like that. But the point I really want to send home with you here in this video is, if you've never run lights live for a special event like you're planning at your church, then start basic. Start more basic than you think you need to, okay? Because the big secret that nobody tells you is that rather than having a billion things at your disposal to play in your consoles, it's more important to be able to, at the right moment, fade in the right look at the right speed. It's important to be able to go and, just ease in. I'll adjust this fade time. Just ease in a different look on stage according to the music. Okay? It's better to be able to go ahead and maybe for a particular song, maybe I just brought those up to the sky. I've got my beam lights in, and, I go ahead and there's a part of the song, maybe a bridge, where things are very uplifting and very vertical focused, towards God. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll bring these lights up a little bit. We'll just do it manually on these faders, okay? Very simple, but it's something that if you have a bunch of cues pre-programmed, when that moment hits in the service or the special event, you're going to be scrambling and trying to find that on time. Whereas if we just keep it to a few faders, to some basic fader-based control, then I can just bring certain groups of lights up and down, and I can simplify the look on stage as needed. Maybe I, end a song just in my color wash with those movers up there, and then I dip the movers out, okay? And then I can go over to my playback buttons, and, I can move my movers around. Okay, they've moved. Now I can start to bring some things back in. And I can work with the lights in the room, with different effects. Whatever I need is all at my hands. And so I hope this kind of gives you a really good introduction to this. If you are looking for more, inside of my course called Puntastical, which is part of Learn Stage Lighting Labs, I have a full recipe complete with checklists that shows you step by step by step how to build a layout like this and how to build a file so that even if your lighting rig changes, you're always able to keep it up to date, always able to get moving really fast with a punt page, basically. This is what we call this, but a layout, a console file that you can move to very quickly, bring some new lights in, and be off and running very fast so that you can create great lighting. Again, check that out, and I'll see you guys around here next week. Make sure to check out the rest of the videos in this playlist, and if you're not subscribed here, of course, be sure to be subscribed here on YouTube.